Hello and welcome. My name is Adam. I am from the Have You Seen It podcast, where we review a lot of new release movies, sometimes talk about some old movies and just other things we're, watching during the week and whatnot. Um, Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to tier rank all the movies that I saw in the year 2024. So that's kind of cool and hopefully a little fun. It'll be a long video. Trust me, it'll be it'll be a long video. I watched 35 films as of today. I'll still watch a few more. There were a few that I didn't get around to that I wanted to see. In particular, The Brutalist. Which won the Golden Globe for Best Drama. That seeming like a lot of people love this film, so definitely got to get around to seeing that one. Amelia Perez, which also won Golden Globe for Best Comedy Musical. Interested in watching this because I don't think I'm really gonna like it much. So I'm curious to see if it's better than what the trailer is telling me it is, but I didn't get around to seeing that. Sing Sing is another one that I wanted to see, and just a couple here and there that I just didn't get around to. But for the most part, I saw everything that I really, really was interested in, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, before I get started, again, shout out the podcast. Have you seen it? Um, Basically, just gotta say, if you're interested in the content here, or if you're interested in hearing our opinions about movies, or if that sounds like something that you would want to listen to in the car, or while you're doing chores and whatnot, you should go find us. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify Podcast. We are on YouTube. It is a visual video component. We do audio and video for it, which is cool. You can find us on Instagram, and I even just made a TikTok for us. So just search any of those for Have You Seen It? And you'll probably find it somewhere. And yeah, and follow us, like the content, subscribe. That's always helpful. Just trying to build the community. So yeah, feel free to do that if you like what you're seeing. Um, I think that's about it, and I can get going. Again, this will be a long one, but hopefully it'll be a fun one. I'm gonna try to do a brief explanation of movies, at least the movies that aren't obvious that people maybe haven't heard of, and then just give you a little bit of what I thought about it, and then I'm gonna throw it in my tier list here, and I should say my tiers are S as the top tier for all-time favorites. These are really like five-star movies. These are best of the best. Just ones that really, really work for me, or just I think are, masterpieces in one way or another. Um, just a little bit lower than that. So those are really kind of 4.5-star movies. Highly recommend. Really, really good. I liked pretty much everything about it, but maybe there was a couple things that were just holding it back from being all-time favorites for me, but still really, really solid films, and everybody should see them basically. Next one down, we got Good. These are just really good, solid films. Like maybe nothing like too amazing or too like groundbreaking, but just really good films that are worth checking out if you have the time. And then we hop down to Meh, which are just like films that are like, they're okay. They I like some things about it, didn't like some other things about it, but ultimately not probably not worth the time watching, basically. And then Bad, it's anything under that, which is just like, no, I did not like these films. They did not work for me, and I would not recommend them to anybody. So that's what we're working with. All right, let's get going. So the first film I got here is Dune Part 2. I don't think I need to explain too much about that. Epic sci-fi, Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya, directed by Denis Villeneuve. Really one of my kind of favorite, one of my favorite like modern filmmakers. Truthfully, um, Part 2 of the first installment of the Dune series. Really like this film. I liked it better than the first one. It had a lot more going on. I should say it had more going on. It's a little bit more exciting. The first one kind of sets a lot of things up, and this one really, really kind of like sees where those get to play out, sees how those play out. Really liked it. I was a fan of this. I will preface that this one probably is a good one to see in the theaters, and I watched it on an airplane. It just worked out that way. I really wanted to watch it. I was on an airplane. I'm like, well, I really want to see it, so might as well see it for free, you know. But that maybe that tainted my viewing experience a little bit. So I'm curious to rewatch and see what I think after a second viewing. But for now, it's going to stick in the highly recommend, and we'll see where that lays out once I get some more movies in this tier. Second film, Speak No Evil. So this is a film, it's kind of like a thriller, you know, I would say pretty generic thriller with James McAvoy. Basically, the idea is he like lives in kind of the outskirts of England, kind of like on a ranch or something, and he meets a family on vacation who also just moved to England. Um, I think they're in London. Um, and basically he meets them on vacation and he's like, "Oh, once we get back, you should come over to the ranch and you should stay the weekend." So they end up doing that and basically it's pretty clear that he's pretty quirky and it's him and his wife and his son. And it's pretty clear that he's pretty quirky. The son like doesn't talk at all, which comes from the name Speak No Evil. And it's just very obvious that something weird is going on there. And basically this was okay for what type of film it is. You know, it was good filmmaking, like it looked good. Really good acting, honestly, very good acting. The problem that I have with this film is that it got really repetitive and it kind of got just obnoxious because it was just basically the middle part of this. It's just they do something weird and creepy. The wife um of the family that they meet on vacation is like, "Oh, I don't like this. Let's go home." And then her husband's like, "No, they're fine. They're just quirky. Let's just stay." And that happens about 12 times, and it gets really annoying after about the sixth time for me. Uh and I was just like, "Come on. Like how many times we got to do this?" I like this is getting ridiculous. And it really takes a long time to just get into like the exciting part of this film. Once it gets there, it's fun and it's okay. It's you know predictable. It's nothing new. So the bar is kind of low already, but because it was so frustrating and it took so long to get into it, I just did not like this movie. I'm gonna put this in bad. So that's our first bad movie. Bird. This is kind of a, you know, more of a low budget indie film, takes place in England. Does have Barry Keoghan, who, you know, if you know him, you know him. You know, he's a pretty good actor. He's kind of an up and comer too. This is interesting story, basically just very kind of like underprivileged, low income kids all living in the slums in London or in England, somewhere in England. I don't know if it's London. Um, and Barry Keoghan is like the dad to the main character is his daughter. So he, you know, he's like in his 30s or whatever, and his daughter's like a teenager. So that aspect is very interesting, and he's just very like immature and probably not a good dad. And like actually, yeah, actually, daughter and son are all living together, and the son is kind of like getting into trouble with you know gang stuff and stealing and violence. Nothing too crazy. Like he's still like seems like a good kid. But anyway, the main character is the daughter, and we follow her around, and she kind of you know she's just trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life and stuff, and she kind of finds a kind of she comes across a person who it seems pretty clear is kind of like a mystical figure. Like this is kind of like a modern fairy tale type of thing. It's clear that he's kind of different and he's not just a normal person. There's other things going on. So there's aspects of that are interesting. And he's basically trying to find his mom and dad. He like used to live here, then like he kind of disappeared, literally just like disappeared, and then he finally came back and he's trying to find his mom and dad. Interesting concept. I like the modern fairy tale aspect of it. So it was good. It was good. You know, pretty tame, like nothing like too crazy going on here, but some interesting filmmaking, I will say. and good acting. It's all good. Like I liked it. I would say if it sounds interesting to you, check it out. It might not blow your mind, but it might be worth a watch. So we're gonna put it in good. Next movie, Heretic. Um, this was an A24 movie. Well, I should say, by the way, I believe Bird was an A24 movie too. Maybe not, but it's that type of vibe. Heretic, an A24 movie. Also, uh, Hugh Grant basically lives on his own, and two Mormons. I assume it took place in Utah. I can't, maybe that's wrong, but maybe I'm making an assumption. Two Mormons, young girls, basically come to his door and want to talk to him about their religion, and he invites him in, and he is like a religion scholar, basically. Like he knows all about all different types of religions, and it goes into the whole movie is basically them talking back and forth about religion and the good things about it, bad things about it, and him basically trying to convince them that, maybe the things you believe aren't really like helping you and aren't really good, and maybe they're not truthful, and maybe you need to question these things. So a lot of that questioning, the power of religion, and is should they believe it and should they not. And then it takes a turn into kind of like a horror thriller. I wouldn't say horror, more of a thriller thing where they're trapped in the house, and he's basically playing this game with them. And he's like, well, you can leave, you just got to go through one of these two doors. And one door says believe, and one door says not believe, or I think that's what they said. So it's like it's just this kind of like game of cat and mouse, basically, and the whole thing is surrounded religious conversation. It gets a little weird, and it almost went to a point where I was like, oh, I don't like that direction, and then it kind of backs away from that, and then I really ended up liking this. I was a fan of this, and his character is pretty creepy, and pretty he plays it really well. So this one I'm gonna put highly recommend. Uh, this one will be lower than Dune though, part two, but still highly recommend. Okay, gotta speed it up. Dee Dee, this is a movie. This is another kind of indie film, low budget film about I believe a Chinese. Is he Chinese? No, he's not Chinese. Indonesian maybe. An Asian boy who lives in California who's kind of like it's basically a coming of age story of somebody who feels out of place because of his heritage, and he's kind of like wants to be he's kind of a skater, and he kind of wants to be a filmmaker, and he wants to like film his friends skate videos and things, and it just kind of like goes in a few different directions, and it's just a good coming of age story with a different type of character that maybe we don't see as much. This reminded me a lot of Eighth Grade. I think that one was called Eighth Grade. That came out a while back. That was a girl's perspective, and this is a boy's perspective. But it has a lot of similarities to that. I really liked it. I was a fan of it, and also the era is like 2000s, so it was somewhat around when I grew up. So there was a lot of nostalgia, you know what I'm saying, to it, that I appreciated and I thought was kind of fun. I liked it. I thought this was a good movie, and I liked this one better than Bird. I would recommend this to people. Again, not gonna blow you away. I don't expect like too much, but it was fun. It was funny. It was entertaining, and it had, it reminded me of my youth a little bit. So I was a fan. Okay, next one. I don't need to explain anything about this because everybody knows what this is. Wicked. I will just say I really, really, really liked Wicked. Did not expect to like it just because I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know much about it. Didn't, musicals are hit or miss for me, but this one was a huge hit for me. Very big fan. Highly recommend. Everybody should watch this. I know that not everybody's gonna like it or love it, but if you even have a inkling of like, oh, I might like it, you should watch it. It's really, really good. Um, where it's gonna fall, I think we're gonna do right under Dune Part Two. Dune Part Two is just maybe more of a movie that I'm like more my style. But right under Dune Part Two, really really good. Kind of blew me away to be honest. Okay, next movie. This is a documentary called Daughters. This is based around a group of daughters who all of their fathers are incarcerated in prison. And somebody at some point says, "Oh, I want to put together a father-daughter dance because I we none of us will be able to do that with our dads." And basically they put together a dance. They go to the prison that all the dads are at, and they put together a dance, and they get to see their dads, and they get to have a dance and have that memory and have that moment. And this documentary follows that, and it's really cool. I like how they do it because we are partly seeing talking to the men in the prison, and we're hearing their stories and a little bit of how they got into prison and their regrets and their kind of the things they learned through their lives. But then we're also following the daughters, and there's I want to say like four daughters that we're talking to all throughout this whole process, before it happens, during it, when it happens, and after. And it's really interesting. That's the most interesting part about the film, is the daughter's point of views, because some of them are like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to see my dad. He's basically chosen not to be a part of my life because of one reason or another that got him into prison. And then sometimes that turns around and says, okay, well maybe I'll do it. Just seeing that perspective is very, very interesting. It definitely had me tearing up a little bit. Really good documentary. This, you can find this on Netflix. Um, this one, documentaries are always hard because they're just very different from fiction films, from narratives. Um, I'm gonna say this is good. And it's good. It's good even in the documentary realm of things. There are a lot of documentaries that I would like more than it, because again, it's pretty simple and it kind of just follows this one story, and it is kind of a little bit more just lighthearted. Um, so it doesn't go into crazy directions, but it was a good watch, and I recommend watching this. Um, Next movie we got Long Legs. So this one, another A24, a lot of A24s gonna be that came out this year and gonna be on my list. This was kind of a thriller, sort of detective mystery, kind of like serial killer type of movie, um, with a pretty weird and out there character from Nicolas Cage. Um, this one was weird for sure. This one had really good cinematography. This one looked really good. I can't I really loved how this one looked. It had tension for me, like it was creepy. It was creepy. I liked it. I thought it was good. I know some people love this movie, and I know some people hated this movie. I think it's a pretty d divisive film. For me, I liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I did like it. So I'm gonna say good for this one. And for now, we're gonna put it. It gets pretty weird at the end, and that's why I'm trying to kind of wrap your head around how you feel about the ending. That's how I feel about a lot of A24 movies. I'm like, did I like the ending? And that'll determine if I liked it or not. Um, yeah, I think I'm gonna put it. Oh, yeah, that's a tough one. I'm gonna put it around here. I think I like Dee Dee a little bit more than it, and Bird a little bit less. So we'll see how that plays out in the good row as we keep going here. Okay, next movie, another A24, Civil War. So I have talked about this one in another one of our podcasts, best and worst of the year. You'll see what half of that it falls in a couple seconds here, but I love this movie. Basically, Kirsten Dunst and what is it, Kaylee Spaney? Is that her name? Have this written down because I always forget her name. Yeah, Kaylee Spaney, who played Priscilla last year in the Priscilla Presley movie. She's kind of an up and comer. Both of them really, really good. Basically, they're war photographers that are in the United States when this sort of civil war happens. It's kind of an alternate US. It's not really what you expect. It's not like Democrats versus Republicans necessarily. There are hints of that, but they don't really, that's not like what they're saying in the film. It's kind of an alternate universe, United States. And basically they're on this, they're trying to get to the White House to interview the president, and they're seeing a lot of crazy, disturbing shit along the way, and it's trying to, survive and make it there, just to do their job and tell the story. And it asks a lot of questions about, should they be interacting? Should they be mad about what they're taking photos of and interacting and helping people? Or is it okay that they're just there to document and show others what's happening? A lot of questions about that. A lot of questions about people that are just like live in the country but are basically like ignoring what's happening. They're just living in their own town. They're just like, "Ah, I can't deal with this." A lot of just, questions that are very poignant. To nowadays. And I love this movie. So this one is going to be our first all-time favorite five-star movie. Um, very, very good. I can't recommend enough. I do think, yeah, it maybe doesn't work for everybody, but for me, it really, really worked. Next movie, Borderlands. So this was a movie based off of the video game series Borderlands, which I do like. I played a lot with my brother when I was younger. Kind of, honestly, one of my favorite video game series. I'm not a huge video gamer, but I really like this one. So I was hoping that this would be good. It's got Kevin Hart. I am a fan of Kevin Hart. I think he's funny. Kate Blanchett. Some other, yeah, there's some big names in this, honestly. Um, I think it's directed by Eli Roth, which is also odd, but it is. Anyway, so this one, this one was there's some good stuff here, but the good stuff is not that good. I enjoyed watching it somewhat, but ultimately, when I got to the end of it and kind of really the last third of it, I kind of just zoned out and I was like, I don't really care. This is not hooking me at all. And it was probably the most generic film I've seen in a long time. The most meh film I've seen in a long time. But it's honestly it's tipping it by the end it tipped to the bad for me. This is a bad film. And it's just so generic. It's not that funny. It's kind of funny. Oh, it's got Jack Black uh as the robot. I'm blanking on his name. Claptrap. Best part of the movie, I think, is him. It's just so generic. It's a little entertaining, a little funny, and a little fun, but it's also a little annoying, a little frustrating, and a little boring. So it just so generic, but it tipped over to the bad for me. Um, Worse than Speak No Evil. Yeah, definitely. Next movie, Nosferatu. This is Robert Eggers, another A24. Um, I really like Robert Eggers' previous films, Lighthouse, Witch, um, what's the other big one? Oh, Northman. I really do like him as a director, so I was really hoping to like this, and I did like this. First of all, looks beautiful. Nosferatu, remake of an old classic like black and white film, basically a Dracula story. His version, well, has a lot more sexual sexual vibes, we'll just say, which is can be was a little off-putting, honestly. I was like, does that need to be in there? I'm not sure. For me, I was like, it was a little off-putting. It's okay. It's not terrible. I mean, again, that's my opinion. If you don't like that sort of thing, then don't watch this film because there's a lot of sexualization in here. But it just felt kind of weird. I don't know. You kind of feel a little gross watching it a little bit, and I don't enjoy watching films that make me feel gross. I really liked it. It looked good. I liked a lot about it, honestly. I liked when they go to the castle at the beginning. Everything visually that was happening, I was really into. Um, my biggest problem with it is the third act is like totally uninteresting because they tell you what's gonna happen. They basically say, this is what needs to happen to defeat this guy. And then from there on out, I'm like, okay, you just told me what's going to happen. Why do I care? And I think what happened was they're taking it from the source material. That probably did that too. But I would argue That's a black and white movie that came out in 19, I don't know, whenever. Uh, this is a 2024 movie. Maybe we need to switch that a little bit and not tell the viewers what the ending is going to be. And when that ending happened, I was like, okay, maybe they're not going to do it. Nope, nope, they just did it. Okay, well, why do I care? There's no tension at all, and that really dropped this film for me. It was honestly sitting at a 4.5 for me for most of it, and then once I got to the end, I'm like, nah, like really, that's it. So I do think it's still a good film. Um, I do think it's worth a watch. And maybe that won't bother you as much as it bothered me. But ultimately, it went from a really good highly recommend, to a good film with a bad ending. Eh. And I was just disappointed with it. I wish I really wanted to like this. I mean, I was going in thinking this could be my top film of the year, honestly, and it dropped all the way to good, 4 star. So I was bummed out. Okay, another divisive one. That one might have been a divisive review. I bet a lot of people really like Nosferatu. This one's probably even more divisive, although probably with a different group of movie fans. Deadpool versus Wolverine. I want to preface, I've watched most Marvel movies, but I that rarely do they blow me away. I think the highest star rating I've ever given a Marvel movie is a 4.5, and I want to say I've given that to maybe two movies. Maybe Guardians of the Galaxy I gave a 5. That's possible, but normally these sit at 4 or below, and a lot of them sit at below for me. This one, Deadpool, I really like the first Deadpool. I even rewatched the second one, and I liked it. I thought it was funny. I don't mind Reynolds. I know a lot of people kind of hate him. A lot of people love him. I don't mind him. I think he's funny. Um, Hugh Jackman. That's fun to see Wolverine and Deadpool together. I like that idea. That was fun. Um, this movie did get a little spoiled for me because by the time I watched it, I knew about all the cameos, and the cameos weren't a surprise to me, so they just didn't really have as big of an impact. I like the cameos, I will say. I kind of like the route they went with that. But ultimately, this movie, it was funny. I don't know. I don't know. It just didn't work for me that well. And ultimately, I think it was just like the storyline was so uninteresting. The villain that we get to like halfway through it, I'm like, what is her purpose? What does she want? I don't, she wants, it just made no sense. Her motivation was no sense. So again, kind of similar to Nosferatu, just no tension for me in the last third of this. I just didn't care about what was happening. And I get it, it's a comedy. So maybe I'm just supposed to laugh at things. Maybe that's what I'm doing wrong here. I'm trying to view this more as a cinematic experience and a good story, and there's not a good story. It's just not. Um, so this is still a good movie. I'm gonna say good, but it does fall in the back half of good, for me. And I think it kind of falls, let's see, around this zone here. Yeah. Would I watch it again? Yeah, I would watch it again, but I was hoping for a little bit more out of it. That's all. I'm sorry. I'm gonna make people mad on that one, but that's just what it is. Uh, Gladiator 2. Um, this one, no. This one, no. No. This did not work for me. It's everything I hate about these remakes. Loved the first Gladiator. Definitely such a good movie. Loved it. This movie feels like just feels like a modern B action movie. Doesn't have any of the heart that's in the first one, which is what we wanted. All it has from the first one is basically all the beats that it takes. It just mimicking the first one a lot. And then there are some different things with the emperors and with Denzel Washington's character that at least are interesting. But this film doesn't feel like it fits in the world of Gladiator. It feels totally different to me. It's just like a modern B action movie. And the main character, we don't care about the main character. The thing we care about the most is Denzel Washington. And that's a huge issue if nobody gives a shit about the main character. And there's just it's just bad. And I should say again, we did a review on this, so shouldn't go into this too deep. But the fight scenes just get crazier and crazier and crazier in this thing, and I don't think that's what you should do with Gladiator movie. I think you should tone those down and really just get some heartfelt fights, like some interesting fights, that we saw in the first one, or that we see in like a Game of Thrones sort of thing, just some raw fight, like where we got characters that we care about, that we don't want to die in these fights. We don't need to see baboons and rhinos and sharks and all this shit. It's just too much. It's too much. I'm done. I'm done talking about this movie. I hate this movie. It's terrible. Uh it's bad, and it's pretty darn I like we're gonna put it above these two purely because the filmmaking's still pretty good, the acting's solid, you know. Uh it's interesting because it's just like there are a lot of well-made bad movies that I saw this year, and this is a perfect example. But I just don't like these legacy sequels. I just don't. They just don't work for me. And we'll see that a little bit more later too. All right, here we go. Keeping it rolling. A Complete Unknown, Bob Dylan story, Timothy Chalamet biopic. I am a Bob Dylan fan. I would say I'm a more recent Bob Dylan fan. I've kind of like explored his music, in the last year, even before I realized this movie was coming out. I do like some of his earlier stuff quite a bit. Um, his later stuff it loses me a little bit, personally. But this was just a good movie. This was very good. This was highly recommend for me. I had a ton of fun with this, and I was not expecting to. Honestly, I kind of was shocked at how much I just really enjoyed watching this film. I wanted to rewatch it right away, and I still want to rewatch it. I really connect. I really am interested in Bob Dylan as a person. He's kind of this mystical figure that um, kind of just does his own thing, and doesn't really, doesn't want to do interviews. He's kind of contrarian, just kind of like contradicts everybody. Um, he is a political person, but he does not do anything politically like in his actual life. He just writes songs that have political messages. So I think it's interesting. He doesn't really speak out about that stuff in real life, but he does write songs about it. I don't know why, but this film was so charming. That's like the perfect word. Timothy Chalamet. I do think he was really good in it. There was something about his accent, or his not accent, his version of Bob Dylan. I don't know. It didn't work for me as much as I wanted it to. I think it's working for everybody else, but there's something I just felt like it was hit or miss for me. Just the mumbly nature. Again, I get that Bob Dylan's kind of like a mumbly dude, but it felt like Timothy Chalamet acting like Bob Dylan, and it didn't for me. I don't feel like he just was Bob Dylan. I wasn't just watching Bob Dylan on screen. So in my opinion, it fell a little short on that, and I do really like Timothy Chalamet. So, but didn't quite reach there with the acting. But everything about this, I really like this film. It was just fun. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. And it's crazy to say, but I like this better than Dune Part Two. Very different films, but and I could get into that a little bit later, but in a different video, maybe. There are things about Dune that I don't like. It's funny because he's in that too, Timothy Chalamet. But his character is even more boring. I'm sorry, people are gonna hate me, but Paul, it just feel like is kind of a boring character. I don't really feel like I know who he is. And Zendaya also, her character, I just don't feel like I know what that relationship is all about. There's something missing there with those characters in the Doom films, and it kind of brings it down for me. So Complete Unknown, I kind of like it better. And I'll hate me for it. That's fine. Or love me. Maybe you love me. I don't know. Who knows? Okay, another legacy sequel, Twisters. Okay, this one was interesting. This one I at least appreciated because it felt like it was doing something different. I mean, it does have a similar plot line, but this one did really feel like let's make a Twister movie for uh the this generation, basically, this time period. It felt like a Gen Z version of Twisters. Um So I did appreciate that. It felt different enough to me. Um, comparing it to some of these other ones. Uh, it still was a little cringy. It's still, maybe not really the type of movie for me. By the way, I really like Twister, the original. And this one didn't live up to that for me. Uh, it was okay. And maybe I should be putting it in the meh, but ultimately, I think there were enough things that annoyed me about it that I came to the end thinking it was a little bit laughable, a little bit cringy, and I was like rolling my eyes a lot about it. So I think it ultimately does fall in the bad category for me. It's okay. I get why people liked it, but it's not really a movie geared towards me and what type of movies that I like. So it just didn't really work for me. Next movie, Fall Guy, comedy. Not a lot of comedies. First of all, not a lot of comedies that come out anymore. Second of all, I don't watch a ton of comedies anymore. This one was a good comedy. This is probably the best comedy I've seen in a while. Um, or at least one of the better. Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, right? Basically, he's a stunt guy. They have kind of a relationship, but then falls apart, and he's like trying to get back together with her. Very funny. It was very funny. I was kind of like happy with the level of comedy. Um, then it kind of turns into an action comedy, or like a or like yeah, like action comedy. I guess is the right term. Um, which then it kind of like fell into a little bit generic sort of things, and I was like, oh, you're kind of losing me, but it's still funny. Like, it was good. I did like it actually. Um, didn't love it, but I did like it. Um, and honestly, I liked it more than Deadpool and Wolverine, just because Deadpool and Wolverine have more things that were made me upset. Fall Guys maybe a little bit more of a safer film, so it's not like going for anything crazy. So maybe that's unfair, but that's kind of how that works. But it was a good movie. Sorry, I'm coming off of a cough, so off of a cold, so I apologize for that. It was a good movie. Yeah, it was funny. Yeah, that's all I should say. Gotta speed this up. Sorry. Too much to talk about. Quiet Place, day one, third installment of the Quiet Place movies. I always like the Quiet Place movies because they're simple, fun thrillers, monster movies. And they just work on a different level. Like, I'm not expecting too much from them, but they just are fun. I just enjoy them. I just am entertained by them. And this one was the same. Lupita Nyong'o is the main character. It takes place in New York, and it takes place on the first day of the invasion. So it's I guess you could say it's a little bit of a prequel, but we do get some shots of that in the second film. Anyway, it's kind of a prequel, but kind of not. It basically is just a quiet place in New York, which I thought was fun because obviously there's just so many people in New York, so it adds an aspect of that of like very noisy. It's like the noisiest, city in America. Maybe, I don't know. Is it in the world? I don't know. I'm just making shit up at this point. It's a noisy city. And Lupita Nyong'o's character, which I don't remember her character's name, uh, she is terminally ill. Basically, she's like doesn't have much time to live. And I think that is the most interesting aspect of this is basically to follow her in this sort of end of days event and to see how she feels about it because she honestly feels about it a lot different than everybody else around her. Everybody else is trying to run for safety and she's trying to do something else and she's not necessarily running for safety. I really enjoyed this one, honestly. I liked it better than the second one, I think. Yeah, I liked it better than the second one. First one's still the best just because the first one's always the best, right? Um, highly recommend this. It's gonna be highly recommend. I think probably gonna fall under Wicked. Probably gonna fall. Sorry, I'm referencing my phone here, which I have my this all ordered. Uh, actually have this under Heretic as well. So yeah, that's interesting. Heretic kind of like beat it out for me. Just a little bit more of a unique story, you know. But I did like this. I was entertained by it. Next movie. Okay, we got Furiosa, the follow-up to Fury Road by what's his George Miller. Um, yeah, so these Mad Max films, all the Mad Max franchise films. Basically, this is the newest one. It's got Anya Taylor-Joy, and who is Furiosa, and it's following her story from basically starting with being a child, and being taken away from her family and her community, and then growing up and becoming kind of like a driver on the Fury Road, basically. Um, and this one, I actually really like this one. I was a fan of it. I couldn't believe how many people or like how little people saw this in theaters. Like it got nothing from the box office, but I really enjoyed it, honestly. It was fun. I really like Anya Taylor-Joy. The bad guy who I'm blanking on. Oh, who was the bad guy? Blanking on who it was, but he was really good. I was quite enjoyed his performance. It was pretty fun. The whole thing was fun. I liked it. Um, yeah, I don't know. It worked for me. I was a fan of it. I like these films, so yeah. It wasn't amazing or didn't blow me away. Wasn't as good as Fury Road because obviously again it's just like that was so unique when it came out. This does feel like a Fury Road movie, so you lose sort of that aspect of like seeing that for the first time. But I still liked it. Um, like honestly, I think I like this. Yeah, I like this more than Quiet Place Day One. I gotta rewatch it though. I really do gotta rewatch it. I'm curious where it's gonna fall. Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. First of all, huge Lord of the Rings fan. So I was definitely gonna watch this film. Also, a slight anime fan. I like manga a little better than anime, although there are a lot of aspects of anime that I like compared to manga. But the idea of a Lord of the Rings movie in anime, I'm in. I'm in for that. That's a cool idea. And then the idea that we follow the like the Rohan, the Rohirrim, the soldiers from Rohan. I'm in. Then female character for the main character. I'm in. Uh so everything was working for me for this one. Honestly, I do have to admit I was a little tired in this theater in this showing and I did fall asleep. I was nodding off throughout, so I need to rewatch this to verify how I actually feel about it. But it was fun, and they had a lot of it had all the Lord of the Rings music in it, like a good amount of it, which I appreciated. Had some callbacks, but not annoying callbacks. I don't know. I just like Lord of the Rings anime. I'm just in. I'm just in on this. I like this movie. This is highly recommend. Um, I'm gonna throw it a little bit lower. Again, like it does get a little bit. I do wish it went a little bit different route towards the end because we end up back at Helm's Deep, which is cool. There's not really as much fighting and battling in this as you would think, and I could have done with a little bit more fighting and battling, honestly. I like that it takes more of a character route. I liked most of what it did with that, but give me some big battles in there too, you know? There's like hints at it, but not it doesn't really go big battle. Give me a big battle, and then I would be really happy with this. Okay, next one. I saw the TV Glow. This one, another divisive film, A24 film, so I feel like all of their films are kind of divisive. Um, this one's an interesting one. This one's an interesting one because this one I appreciate what the filmmaker's doing here. I appreciate the message. And basically, I'll give you a little bit of a premise. Um, basic without I mean I don't want to spoil things too much because it is a movie that you're the whole time you're watching you're like what's going on here? I really don't know. It's a movie about two high schoolers, although I guess we do see them at younger age too, right? Middle schooler, high schoolers. who both love watching this TV show. And the TV show, I think people are saying it's supposed to be kind of like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer, although I didn't necessarily I a little bit got that, although I didn't watch Buffy, so maybe it is more like it than I realize. Um, but they're connected with this TV series, and they're like kind of like bonding together with this. And then but basically what this is commentary or analysis of gender identity, asking, what do you do if you feel like you're somebody that you weren't born as, you know. If this is an idea that you're not interested in watching in a film, don't watch this film. Uh, that's all I gotta say about that. That is an interesting topic to me. I am curious to hear about that and to hear characters that are dealing with this. So I was in it for that, and that's what I mainly appreciate about this film the most. It does get pretty weird. It feels like uh, a Goosebumps episode extended to a film. That's the best way I can describe it. If you're into that, you'll probably love this film. I'm not super into that. I kind of like that idea, but I'm not like that sounds awesome. Um, but basically, it gets weird. It gets abstract. It's very artsy. If you're also somebody who watches like artsy films, and you're like, why they got to be so artsy? Not for you. Uh, but ultimately, I ultimately I appreciate this film more than I liked it. I guess I'm gonna put it in meh, just because it just didn't quite work for me and for what I'm looking for. But I can see why somebody would be really into it. But I can also see why more people would not be into it. But for the right person, this is a really good film. What it's doing, I appreciate, but it's just ultimately not a film for me. So we're gonna put it in the meh. And I feel bad about it. I do kind of feel bad about it. I can probably put it in the good, the meh and the good. But ultimately, the more I thought about it, I was like, I don't really want to rewatch that film. I don't know. But I see what it's doing. I see what it's doing, and I appreciate what it's doing. Okay. We're just gonna keep going divisive because I can see what's coming up next here. Joker Folie à Deux. I don't need to talk too much about this. We did a full podcast, so go to that to hear what we thought. Uh, this movie worked for me more than it worked for most people. I really loved the first Joker, 5-star movie. This is not that. I wish this did a little bit more. But what it did, I appreciated and I liked. I liked, again, the ideas that both of these movies are Joker and Joker Folie à Deux are talking about. I'm very interested in mental health and how society does not really help people with mental health issues, or in what ways it hurts them, basically. Um, those are interesting ideas that I'm really, really interested in. That's why this film probably worked for me more than others. I do wish the last act or the last third of it went in a different direction. I don't I liked how it ended, the ending of it, but I wish that it got to that ending in a more interesting way. I will say that. This was a good movie. I like this movie. Um, I I not sure if I would recommend it to everybody. I'd have to kind of feel out what type of a moviegoer you are. But for me, I liked it. It was good. And we're gonna put it right behind Long Legs. I think Long Legs is doing just more things different and interesting. And that's why I like it a little bit better. Um, okay, keeping going, keeping going. Beetlejuice, another legacy remake where I like the first film and I hate the Legacy remake. Maybe hate's a little strong word. I disliked it. The first half was okay. I was like, oh, maybe this is gonna go somewhere. And then the second half just, I did not care about it. There were two antagonists in this film, and I'm like, what movie has two antagonists? Why does this have two antagonists? I don't care about either of these antagonists because there's two of them, and we're trying to keep track of both. And then what's happening with Lydia and Beetlejuice is like basically the same as what happened in the first movie, just a little bit different. And honestly, like the first movie is more subdued and it all takes place in the house, and I kind of like that better. Like it didn't work for me. I didn't like it. There are some funny jokes. The filmmaking is good. Like it looks good. Again, all my bad movies look good, which is cool that we're at the point in film where bad movies look good. That's I'm with that. But this one did not work for me. And this, well, we'll see where it ends. But this really, I really dislike this because again, I really dislike these legacy sequels more than other movies because they make me so mad because I want them to be good and they disappoint me so much. So much. So that's why I'm a little harsher on them because I'm like, you're kind of like, it's kind of like T-ball. Set it up. Just get the heart of what the first movie did and do something different. Do not do the same movie over again. They just don't get it. T-ball, baby. Hit that away. No, no, not working. Okay. The Substance. Whew, this movie is a trip. And I say that in a positive way. This movie, Demi Moore, and let me look up the other actress's name because she did awesome, and I'm forgetting her name. We got it here. Don't worry, don't worry. Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, who's somewhat up and coming as well. Um, awesome, awesome, awesome acting from both of them. So good. This movie, if you don't know, although it's kind of making its way around now, people are hearing about this thing. Uh, basically, Demi Moore is kind of like a washed up actress who's she's got like a fitness show. Um, and she wants to look young again. She wants to look more beautiful than she does now. Like, like she feels she's not happy with how she's looking and with her aging, and she wants to look like she did when she was, 21. So she takes this sort of substance, basically, medical substance, and which turns her young again in a way. It's kind of I don't want to say too much about it, but it's basically turning her younger. Kind of, it's also kind of like duplicating her and making a different version of her. That's a little bit open ended on how you want to interpret that. And then basically the other her is taking advantage of the substance, and it's basically hurting the real life her. And what's interesting about this is you have to go 1 week your normal self and one week your substance self, your younger self, and you have to go back and forth. And when you choose not to do that, that's when things start getting bad. And basically, this just escalates, and it gets so interesting. I should say this is a body horror film, so there's a lot of body things that are very hard to watch. Um, Although to be honest, the first like 2/3 of it actually weren't that bad to me. Like to me, like I was like, okay, I don't actually mind. Then the last third really ramps it up, and I will say it got a little much for me. I understand why people love this. For me, it was just a little much. But at the same time, when I thought back on it, I'm like, man, this is a good film. I just really appreciate the filmmaking, some of the best filmmaking of the year too. Like some really good cinematography, some really cool shots. Um, the practical effects, obviously, with the body stuff and what's happening there, uh, really, really good. Highly recommend. I would highly recommend this to a small amount of people because there's the normal public is probably not going to be into this film. I would highly recommend this to the people that I know can stomach the body horror and are really going to appreciate it. It's still a highly recommend, but it's just it's tough to swallow once you get to the end. Uh, that's I should not have used that metaphor, but whatever. But it is a tough one to watch at the end. So if you're like on the edge, I say watch this, but just whatever you're thinking it's going to be from the trailer, it's going to be more than that. And just prepare yourself for that. That's all I'm saying. Really good. Highly recommend. Really good piece of filmmaking. I was kind of blown away by it, honestly. It's only down here because the body horror stuff is just honestly, it's not really my thing, and it got a little bit too much, just a little bit too much. That's all. But really, really good. Another really, really good film, Challengers. I think this one is maybe a little underrated, although I do know like film critics are praising this. It was nominated for Golden Globes. I'm not sure if it'll be nominated in the Oscars. I hope it does. Zendaya. This is Luca Guadagnino. He's the director. Directed Call Me by Your Name. Directed Bones and All, both with Timothy Chalamet. Directed some other stuff that I was a fan of. Um, and this one is it's a love triangle. It definitely is a love triangle between tennis players. All three of them are tennis players, two men and Zendaya. And there is some well, I don't want to say too much. It's really good. It is really good. This film is so interesting. It's doing some very interesting things with the filmmaking style. It's kind of jumping back and forth between, flashbacks and this one tennis match. And it's going back and forth and it keeps coming back to this match. And I really like that structure. It was really cool to just keep coming back to that tennis match. And in that match, it just gets more intense and more intense. And the things that you're seeing in the flashbacks all of a sudden shed more different light on the two characters that you're seeing. But ultimately, this movie is about trying to be the best at something. In this case, it's tennis, trying to be the best and being obsessed with being the best. And they're so obsessed with being the best that they're also obsessed with other people who are obsessed with being the best. And that's where the love triangle comes into play. They're basically just infatuated with each other because of how good at tennis they are. This movie was pitched in the trailer as very sexual, like you would think there would be a lot of sex and a lot of nudity. It is sexual. There's no nudity. There is one piece of nudity in a guy's locker room. But there's no sex scenes that were actually seen. They're just hinted at. It's really not that type of a thing. It's just a really interesting character piece. And these three characters I was really interested in, they all kind of have their downfalls. They're all just struggling. They were all best at one point, but they're kind of struggling. And to see them all connect in the end and see how that plays out was just so good. This was a huge shock to me. I did not expect to like this film so much, but this is a five-star film, all-time favorite for me, just behind Civil War. So good. You got to see this thing. Next movie. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. I know it's long, but I hope you're enjoying yourself because I am. I just like talking about movies, so hope you like listening to me about movies. You get it. Alien Romulus. This was another legacy sequel. This one of all the legacy sequels worked the best for me, maybe because I don't have a huge connection with the Alien franchise. I like the first film. I actually haven't seen the second or the third. It's trust me, it's on my watch list. It have been for a while. I like some of the other newer films of the series, Alien Covenant and uh, what was the other one? Prometheus. I actually like those quite a bit. I was a fan of those. Um, so this one is more of. I'm sorry, I got my nose all stuffed up. Stupid cold. This one is more of a classic kind of legacy sequel where it seemed like a modern version of the Alien movie. Um, I was a fan of it. I thought it was good. I thought it was good. Like I said, it's gonna land at the good part. But it was fun. I did think the ending just kept going on forever. And that was the biggest thing about it. I had fun with it and then it just had an ending and then oh, no, no, we're still going. Oh, no, we're still going. Oh, no, we're still going. And that you lost me. You lost me at that point. But it ended, it still was a good movie. If you're a fan of these films, give it a shot. Um, it was good. Okay, this film, another A24 movie. Love Lies Bleeding. This one has Kristen Stewart. And Katie O'Brien is a kind of a newer actress. I've never seen her in anything else. I'm trying to remember. exactly what this is about. Katie O'Brien is basically a bodybuilder, and Kristen Stewart works at a gym that her father owns, I believe. And they get connected together because of like steroids. Like I think Kristen Stewart like can get her steroids. So that's kind of how they come together, and then they kind of build this love, this relationship. They start to like really love each other. This one kind of turns to like a crime movie. There's stuff happening with his dad. Her dad is basically like he's kind of like seems like kind of like a crime boss type of dude. Um, Ultimately, this one I like the setup. It was interesting enough, but by the end, it just didn't really work for me. Again, it's the same thing with the A24 movies. They all kind of a lot of them end kind of like in a unique way, which I appreciate. But this one just didn't work for me. I just didn't really like it that much. Um, this one, yeah, I wasn't a fan of it. I could see why I like things about it, and I can see why people would like it, but again, it just kind of like it just didn't work for me. Conclave. This is a movie about the Pope dying and all the other what's the term? I don't know. Religious men. I'm blanking on the term. In that group in the conclave or may is the conclave? I don't know. You can tell I'm not a religious person. In the conclave, we'll say that are trying to vote on who the next pope is going to be. Basically, this was really good. I was a fan of this one quite a bit. Stanley Tucci, Ray Fiennes, and a bunch of other actors. Um, I like this one. It was basically felt like a mystery. It felt like a mystery happening in a sort of a voting political sort of atmosphere, and the music is really good. It really builds that tension. I was a fan of this. Yeah, this movie has a lot to say. And honestly, it questions a lot about religion and basically these people, these men who are supposed to be good men and everybody is looking up to them. They're kind of shitty, right? So I appreciate that. I really like analyzing that side of religion and that sort of thing, the negative things about religion. Um, it's talking about some positive things too, but it's kind of analyzing that. And this film definitely is appropriate for 2024 because it feels a lot like the election. Again, and not in a bad way, because obviously we're so over all that and we don't want to talk about that anymore. But it doesn't really go that route. I probably shouldn't have said that because I'm going to turn people away from it. But it's just really interesting to see all these. It's like Game of Thrones in the Vatican. That's what it is. So all these men are just like kind of like backstabbing each other, not actually, but mentally backstabbing each other, and they're trying to get other people to vote for them. Oh, they can't get votes, so now we got to switch. Now we got to make everybody vote for this one person. It was very interesting in that aspect, and I appreciated and enjoyed the analysis that it was making. The end, um, is interesting. There is kind of a twist. Kind of a twist, kind of a reveal at the end that I think some people are liking and some people aren't liking. I do like it. I wonder if there was a better way to get the same idea across. Um, I do feel like there's something about the ending that feels a little clunky and a little just tacked on, but overall, I do like it. I was a fan of this film. This was highly recommend for me. And this is actually going to go high up on highly recommend. I could see this winning an Oscar or at least winning something. It's definitely got that kind of vibe. Uh, Not for everybody. If you're highly religious, you're not going to like this film. I'll just say that. But I really like this. The tone of it was fun and kind of intense, and I appreciate what it did with such kind of like a dull topic. It made it very interesting. I was a fan. Highly recommend this. The next movie, Elton John, Never Too Late. This was the Elton John documentary that came out at Disney put out this year. Uh this was good. I like this one quite a bit. It basically tells the story that we saw in Rocket Man, the fictional biopic of Elton John, except for we get it with actual Elton John, and he's telling the story. And he's going pretty deep. He's going very deep. He's telling everything, and I really appreciated getting to know him even more and hearing a little bit about himself. Like all the points in Rocket Man are in this, but it just works so much better when it's the actual person talking about it, and it just feels so much more genuine. And you really like Elton John as a person throughout this, and even though he's flawed, we're all flawed, and it's just a really interesting story of I mean one of the greatest musicians in the world. Some might say, I'm a little hit or miss on Elton John, but I actually kind of like listening to his earlier stuff, and I'm like, oh, I actually really like his earlier stuff. This was good. I like this. It was interesting. And you can watch it on Disney, so that's always nice. This one, it's gonna go just behind Daughters because I think Daughters has a little bit more to say, a little bit more impactful. Again, not as impactful as some documentaries, but Elton John is still a story about a musician, which I'm into. I like music, so it might be a sweet spot for me too. If you're not really a music person, you still might like it, but maybe not as much as I do. So. Um, all right, we're getting there. Uh, Carry On. This was a Netflix film. Taron Egerton, I believe is his name. Actually, the guy who played Elton John in Rocket Man, which is funny that this came right after. This is just a fun thriller. Takes place in an airport, which is kind of a unique idea and unique setting. I like the airport setting. He's a TSA agent, and basically Jason Bateman, is that his name? Yeah, Jason Bateman is he's like talking to him on an earpiece and saying, basically trying to get him to let a bomb through and get onto the airplane. And I was a fan of this. I liked it. It was good. Again, the ceiling for this is low, um, because it's just an action thriller. But I had a good time with this, and it was more fun than I was thinking it might be. So this one was good, and you can watch this on Netflix. It's gonna land just behind Alien Romulus. Again, it's pretty generic, somewhat generic, although it still does it well. It does it well. There is a scene later in a car with a car crash that I thought was way too much. It was just like, if you know, you know, and if you watch it, you'll know. I was just like, that now we're bridging a different territory. Like I wanted this to kind of just be like a fun romp, and now we're trying to be Mission Impossible or something like that. And I'm just like, no, like this is not that type of movie. And I don't like that scene was there, and it was just very CGI, and it just looked fake, and it took me out of it. I'll just say that. um Take that scene out. We didn't need that, and then the rest of this is good. Okay. A Real Pain. This one also getting some nominations, at least for the Golden Globes. Not sure yet what the Oscars are going to do. This is Jesse Eisenberg. I believe his directorial debut, his first film that he directed. He also wrote it. And then the other guy is Culkin, Kieran Culkin. Um, so basically, these two are cousins. Their grandma just passed away. They're Jewish, and they both live in New York, I believe. And they are going on a trip to Poland together to go to concentration camp, to learn about their heritage, and then to go visit their grandma's home where she lived. Um, that's kind of sounds like a boring premise. And this movie is not anything like too dramatic or too it is dramatic, I would say, but it's not too exciting. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It is a good film. I quite liked it. The premise that I'm missing here is basically Jesse Eisenberg is kind of this uptight, kind of like very perfect, need everything kind of be a little bit perfect kind of dude, and his cousin is like total like doesn't just will say whatever he wants to say. Um, kind of like it feels like kind of like an artsy kind of dude, even though he's not like an artist or anything, I don't think. He feels like kind of that vibe of just like artists like living life by the second, basically. And he's very charming and he's charismatic. And basically, they're on this tour with a bunch of other people that it's fun to see them interact and just shenanigans kind of start to happen and Jesse Eisenberg gets annoyed with him and he's like it's just a interesting character study that has a lot of deeper questions that it's asking actually. um just as an example, they're on a train and they're in first class and Kieran Culkin's character just starts freaking out and he's just like, oh God, I just this feels wrong. Doesn't this feel wrong to you guys? And he's basically like, we're sitting here in first class getting food given to us. And we're going to, to learn about our heritage, and we're going to learn about, yeah, Jewish people who basically lived a life of no frills and we're just obviously we know what happens in the concentration camps, just terrible terrible things. So basically this question of like, should we be doing this, should we be accepting that we're just like being doted on and like, oh, we just like we're in first class, we're so fancy, but we're like also like in Poland looking at our heritage. But just a question, there's certain questions like that, questions about ourselves and how we view things and how we live our lives. um I liked it. I thought it was good. Nothing amazing here, but for I honestly what it is, it's doing everything exactly how I would want it to do. So this film is good. And actually, I don't know if I sold it enough, but this is the top of good for me. Like this was close to highly recommend. It was close. Again, just because it's a pretty basic story, but the acting's really good. The characters are very interesting and it's asking some good questions. So top of good for me. Okay. Trap. M. Night Shyamalan's movie. With Josh Hartnett. Basically, he's at a concert with his daughter. He is some sort of serial killer type of person. That's in the trailer. If I spoiled that for you, I'm sorry, but that's literally the trailer, and it's spoiled in the first 5 minutes. So it's not the twist. Um, and that's just it's fun. This movie is fun. We get to see him kind of like basically, oh sorry, I forgot the second half of the premise. He's at the concert with his daughter and the police are know that he's there and they have surrounded the whole place and they're trapping him in this concert and he has to figure out how to escape. Very fun. I will say this does not take place all in the concert. It takes place in other places, and I appreciated that we went outside of the concert, and we got to explore a little bit more things. It kind of switched it up a little bit. And the things that happened outside of it, I think were fun to even more fun, honestly, than some of the other things. I just had a really good time with this film. Um, his films lately are hit or miss, but he usually has good premises, and this was a good premise that actually delivered. I had a great time with this. I honestly I would recommend this to most people because it's just fun. I don't know. It's you're not gonna. It's not amazing, but it's just fun. Um, and honestly, I gotta rethink my position of this. I don't know, I'm pushing this up. I think it's lower on my list right now, but I just like this. I just think it's fun. I want to rewatch it. We're gonna put it right there, right behind the documentaries, right ahead of DD. Um, fun, just fun. Don't Move. This is kind of a similar, it's a thriller, serial killer person, with a good premise. This kind of falls in a similar vein as that. Not done as well. Basically, the idea is the main character is paralyzed by kind of the antagonist, the serial killer guy. and she's trying to get away from him. And it is very interesting the ideas that we're seeing, like how is she going to get away? She's paralyzed, but she does come up with some things while she's paralyzed, and she starts to get away from him, and that's very interesting. It was pretty fun too. Um, this was a Netflix one. Well made. It looked good. There were some things that didn't work for me for with it. Uh, Mainly, I don't know. The bad guy, I was hit or miss on. I like that he felt kind of like just a normal dude because he was like he was making a lot of mistakes. I kind of like that, but I kind of dislike that too. I just feel like I don't know. I guess I like when my villains are really, really smart and really like more of a Hugh Grant in Heretic, right? He was kind of like just making a lot of dumb mistakes. Um, this one was fun. I would say you it's worth a watch. Um, it's good. It's good. Not amazing, good, and it's gonna end up being towards the back end of good. Um, if you like the premise, I'd say give it a shot. We'll leave it at that. Okay, here we go. Anora. Actually, I'm gonna. Well, no, we'll just do it now. I was gonna tease you and leave it at the end. So this one also got getting some nominations, at least at the Golden Globes. A lot of people are liking this film. A lot of film critics and reviewers and podcasts and things that I listen to like this film. So I watched the trailer and I was like, I don't see too much here. I like the premise. I like the idea behind it, and the idea is in a sex worker in, I guess, New York, right? Basically comes across a Russian son of a Russian oligarch, I guess is what people are saying. I don't even feel like they say that in the film, but basically a really rich, powerful Russian family. Their son is just a total uh kind of burnout, like basically he goes to New York and just goes to strip clubs and gets drunk and has parties and just total, yeah, nothing, not, just living life just for the fun of it, nothing going for him really. So they meet, he pays her to have sex with him and then pays her to, well, I won't spoil it too much. They decide to get married. And it's, a question of, oh, do they really love each other? They've literally been together around each other for like a week or so, or a couple weeks. So it's like, oh, they can't love each other, but they get married. All that I'm fine with. I liked it all up until that point. But to be honest, all of that was in the trailer. And there are details of that were provided, but nothing is adding anything else to that. Uh, that's the premise. I like the premise. I saw the premise in the trailer. When I watched it in the film, it was still entertaining, but didn't add anything to it. The next hour of this film after that is what I do not like about the film. I just thought it was so boring. It was not tense at all. There was no tension. Like I was wanting like an Uncut Gems thing with this, and I think that's maybe what it's going for, but there was no tension at all. It was so repetitive. It kept doing the same things over and over. Like I feel like there's one scene that goes on for like 30 minutes and I'm like, Jesus, we just did this. We've had this same line of dialogue three different times with different people, and I'm like, why? What is going on here? It's kind of a long film. And I'm just like, no, we don't need all this. So that deterred me so much, that the middle part, and then kind of like once it starts to wrap things up, I was like, that's kind of not that fun. That's just boring. And then at the very end, the kind of the period it puts on this film, I will say was impactful. It had a message that I'm interested in exploring and I can get behind. It makes you feel really shitty. So not super enjoyable to watch. And just that with the middle part of this being so boring, I just did not like this film. I wanted to like this so much, so bad, and it seems like other people are really loving this, but it was boring, and that's just what it was. It was boring. So this was bad. It hurts me to say this was bad because I know there's a lot here. Mikey Madison, who is the actress. Awesome job. I really like the direct. I do like the director. He did Florida Project, so if you know that, it's kind of a similar vibe. I like exploring characters that are, um, kind of like have shitty lives, and the life of a sex worker is not a good one. Um, so I like exploring that, and I do appreciate that about it, but it did it in such a boring way that I lost my all my interest in it. So, um, it's gonna go at the top of bad, but it's still to me ended up being bad. I just think it failed in the middle, and it was so fucking long. Oh God. Um. Okay. Next movie, Watchers. Last two here. This was M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. I think it's her first movie. I believe. Um, Watchers, it is based off of a book. I think it's like an Irish fairy tale, Irish type of story, right? Uh, that it's been a while since I've seen this one. Basically, the premise is, I should say who's in this. This is Dakota Fanning, who we haven't seen a ton in lately. I thought she did a good job. Basically, finds herself in a building in the middle of the woods. She gets kind of lost in the woods. Like the woods are kind of like mystical. You can't get out of them basically. And she finds people in this building. And she's like, okay, well, I gotta go in this building because I don't know how to get out of this woods. These are the only people I can find. So she goes in the building, and the premise is that these people in the building, basically at the nighttime, they lock themselves in, and there are these creatures who like come to the windows and just observe them. And it's an interesting premise. And I was like, where is this gonna go? This is very interesting. Um, I like this film. I like the premise of it more than the execution. Uh, the ending I actually did like the ending and what the conclusion of it was with these monsters, figuring out what these monsters are. I actually liked it. I was a fan of it. I think the execution is lacking. I really wanted to stay in this building for a lot longer and see and have conversations in here with all the people that are in there, see what they're thinking. Obviously they're trying to kind of like figure out some are trying to escape, some are just like, no, we got to live here for the rest of our lives, basically. Um, I wanted to live in that building a little bit more. I wanted it to feel like, what do you call it? 10 Cloverfield Lane, where most of the movie we're in a one room with just two people in that one, but this one has multiple people. I wanted to live in that and I wanted to feel like I was in that room with them as these monsters are coming every night to just observe us. Um, it didn't do that. It kind of went away from that too quickly, I thought. So all in all, I like the premise of this. I thought it was good, a lot to desire, but ultimately, I was still a fan of it. It's gonna come to the back end of good here for me. Um, and then the last one here, small things like this. So this is Cillian Murphy. I don't ever remember how to properly pronounce his name. I just know people pronounce it in both of those ways. I feel like it's Killian. Doesn't matter. He's great. He's a great actor. And he's really good in this. This is another small budget indie film. Not not a ton going on here, but what is going on, I like. Um, so basically, I'm trying to remember. So he's lives in Ireland, is in, small town in Ireland. And he is very just like he's just a hard, like what is he? He delivers coal. This takes place. I don't remember when it takes place, but it takes place in an older time. But he delivers coal, and that's his job. Just very mundane. He has a family, lives in a very modest, small little house. They don't make a ton of money. They can, barely buy Christmas gifts basically. And he starts to come across one of the places he delivers coal is like I'm not gonna say it's like I want to say like a convent, but I don't think that's actually right. It's basically a boarding school, a Catholic boarding school, and they have like a little building next to it where they have young women who their parents are like don't know what to do with them. They're like troublemakers or whatever. Maybe some of them are like, well, anyway, I don't want to spoil anything, but their parents don't know what to do with them, so they send them to this kind of boarding school thing. Um, so he starts coming across these girls and starts seeing that the nuns are not treating them well. And it's just a character study of somebody who sees something every single day that's wrong, that he knows is wrong, but the whole town is like telling him just let it be. The nuns basically run this town. If you start opposing them, everybody's gonna oppose you. And it's a question of do I care what everybody thinks, or do I follow my heart and know that this is not right and I'm gonna help out? And that's what this film is. It's pretty slow, I will say. So just be prepared for that if you choose to watch it. Very good acting. I like the message. I like the concept or yeah, the themes in it. So if you're okay with just kind of living, watching a slow movie about interesting themes and interesting messages, you'll probably like this one. I liked it for what it was, but obviously probably not one I would recommend to everybody. But I was into it. It's gonna fall. It's good. It's gonna fall in good. Good is always for me. Good is always the category that has the most. Maybe I need to rearrange my tiers a little bit here, but good is always the category that has the most for me. And this one's gonna fall. Let's see, where did I put this? So this one falls a little bit. I put this right behind Didi. So yeah, so this is pretty. I like this. I liked it. I would say it took quite a bit longer than I would have liked to get into it, but and it kind of teases things, so it's like you're not sure exactly what's happening. But ultimately, I really like this one. Um, there you go. Yeah, so as you can see, and I knew this was going to happen because I already kind of laid this out. I didn't have a lot of meh films, which are to me 3 star, right down the middle, kind of just like there were a lot of good films, a lot of good films this year. We got Civil War Challengers. These are must-sees. Um, Conclave just worked for me. I think it's really good. Some people might not like it. A Complete Unknown just worked for me. The Substance worked for me, but was a little bit much for me. Doom Part 2, really solid. Wicked, just really impressed with, and it kind of goes down from there. Really good films this year. I was very happy. And then a lot of solid, good films, not a ton of meh, and a handful that I just didn't like. So yeah, so that's my year of movies in 2024. Hope you made it to the end. If you did, thanks. That's awesome. Then you might be one of not so many, but but I appreciate it. Yeah, these are fun. Yeah, I'm gonna do more tier videos coming, and then keep an eye out for all of our podcasts coming out. Like I said, like, subscribe, become part of our community because we're just starting off. We need more people, right? So become a part of the community. And yeah, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks again.